Platinum Baby Productions.
About 3 days ago, I did a video regarding the default setting of plugins. And I wanted to have a conversation, or at least start a conversation, about how the default is affecting the gain stage. And I want to thank Joe Gilder for helping me get the word out to all those who are mixing and not understanding why when they add a plugin, their mixes are changing. Yes, have plugin gain stages been talked about? Of course it has. But no one has addressed when you initiate a plugin that it changes the volume level. Plugins should not affect the audio when you initiate it. These companies are adding gain to make their plugin sound better. And that's not fair. To trick your ears to make you think that their plugins are better. And they shouldn't be doing that. And finally, we're having a conversation about how the default of plugins are affecting the gain stage.
Also, gain staging is very, very, very important in the analog world. Not as important inside the digital audio workstation with plugins, but super important in the analog world. So kind of keep that in mind.
Just Platinum, baby. I'm going to have some dialogue regarding the default settings of plugins. In default mode, every time you add a plugin, it's either going to boost or lower your gain. That is not good. When you initiate them and they're in default, they all should be the same level when you're mixing. Because if they're not the same level, it's going to change your mix.
When you mix a song, do you sometimes feel that every time you add a plugin, things start to fall apart a little bit? Or maybe you're not sure if the plugins you're adding are making things better or worse?
What you see is when you add a plugin, a UAD plugin is inherently louder than Waves, SSL, or Avid. If you initiate an Avid plugin, the Avid plugin is quieter than SSL, Waves, or UAD. And this could go with any plugins, Acoustica, Plugin Alliance, it doesn't matter. They all have different volume levels. That needs to be taken into consideration when you're mixing. Plugins, when you initiate them, they should all be the same level. So when you're mixing, it's not tricking your ears to make you think it sounds better. When in reality, all it's doing is adding more gain or reducing your overall gain.
Just about everything I know about mastering I learned from Ian. He's fantastic. And he did a presentation where he played two clips for us, two versions of a mix, A and B. And he asked the audience to listen to them. He played them a couple of times and then tell us what we heard that was different in B versus A. Hands shot up in the room. People started yelling out answers. People that I respect and trust, like Graham Cochran. And they would say things like, the second one, B, had more low end. B was punchier. B was brighter. B had more dynamics. And all these answers came out. So the first question was, did you hear a difference? And we all said yes. And then he asked, what did you hear? You want to know what the difference was? 1 decibel. The volume at which we listen to something will have an effect on how we hear it.
You're fighting yourself. Every time you put a new plugin on there, you got to reset your gain to back the way it was. And you got to know that what plugin you putting on there, is it adding gain or taking away gain? All these plugins out here, what are you going to go through every plugin and see if it's going to raise or lower the volume?
When I bypass the plugins, I want it to sound roughly the same volume. That way, I'm comparing more apples to apples, and I'm able to hear what did I do to the actual sound versus did I just make it louder or quieter.
Different manufacturers have different volume levels. Why is that important? Because when you're doing a mix and you're trying to gain stage your mix and you think you got the whole track done and you go to initiate a plugin, it's going to change the volume.
Always level match your plugins. In other words, make sure that if I bypass this plugin, the overall volume stays about the same.
Plugins changing the volume of your audio. I don't know why that's not a conversation. These companies shouldn't be doing that. That's almost like they're manipulating you.
So why does that matter? Well, there's this thing that happens. I think we're born with this innate sense that something louder sounds better. So if we hear one guitar that's louder than another, we will tend to think that it's better.
But if you're using Plug-in Alliance, SSL, Waves, you name it, Acoustica, I bet they plugins are probably loud too. They all have volume levels at different levels. That's all I'm saying. And that affects the gain stage. No one can know when they're putting a plug-in if they don't know. You don't know what you don't know. If you don't know that a plug-in, like say you just bought a new plug-in and we never had this conversation, and you're doing a mix and you want to try out some Plug-in Alliance, because I didn't even do Plug-in Alliance plugins. I don't know where they fall in at. But say you bought a new plug-in and you wanted to use it and you put it on the track. You're not gonna know while you're mixing if it's boosting or lowering your volume, but it matters because that volume level is changing your mix. If you got a mix, it's laid out, and you say, I want to use a UAD LA2A, and you run that across 15 tracks, the whole track is gonna shoot up at least 3-4 dB because now UAD plugins are louder than regular plugins. And then if you go behind that and you drop an Avid plugin underneath that, then it's gonna drop your volume back down. That's crazy to me. Just Platinum, baby. And I'll see you in the music.
Platinum Baby Productions.